are just joining us on Facebook Live, I am Lauren from RDU on Stage, and this is an incredible panel of strong female theater leaders. I want to say arts leaders in our community, so I'm so excited about this. Natasha Jackson is going to be moderating. If you have any questions or comments for our panel, use them in the Facebook comments. And I get to turn my camera off and be a fly on the wall now. Have fun.
Thanks so much, Lauren. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for joining us through Facebook and other avenues. I am thrilled, I'm honored, I am a little bit overwhelmed to be able to moderate this discussion. RDU hosted a forum at 5 o'clock today with dynamic men who direct here in the local theater. And then here I come with this phenomenal panel of women. And, you know, I get to kind of moderate a discussion, and I'm going to take notes. I'm new to directing, so I will be stealing some ideas that I pick up. So if you see me kind of lean over, I'm stealing from you all. My name is Natasha Jackson, and I am a local stage manager and new into directing as well. And again, I'm honored to be here with these wonderful ladies. And so I'm going to have them introduce yourselves. And Deb, we're going to start with you and just tell us a little bit about yourself.
So, hi everyone. My name is Deb Royals, and I'm here both as an artist that lives and works in this community, as well as a representative of the core leadership that is now at the old Sonaris Road Pure Life Theater Company, and our Pure Life Theater Collective, which is a whole group of theaters that are working together to share the space. So there, that'll do for now.
Erin.
My name is Erin Sullivan. Happy to be here. I'm the new girl. I have just recently relocated to the area in about the last year and a half, after living in New York for about 20 years. I'm originally from Wilmington, North Carolina. I'm primarily a song and dance girl. I've been in the industry for 30 years, and I've just started getting into the directing side, producing side of the industry prior to leaving New York. So I am so excited to start getting, my fingers in the mud here with all of these amazing people. And it's an honor to get to meet all of you guys. I'm sorry it's virtually right now, but I'm thrilled to be here.
Awesome. Jerry Lynn.
Hey, I'm Jerry Lynn. Welcome everyone, and thanks so much for having me on the panel, these amazing people who I love. I work at Playmakers for my day job, and I'm also a gun for hire for local theaters. I ran Art Center Stage at the Art Center. So I wasn't much of a director before I took that job on, and I learned on my feet, basically. I learned what worked and what didn't work, and on the fly, and it was really a great learning experience. I had told Kathy a few weeks ago, I gestured this way because on my screen, she's over there. If I had known how much I love directing, I wish I would have studied it in grad school instead of acting, which is what I did study, because I love it so much. So that's it.
Kathy.
Everybody, wow, this is such food for the soul to be on this panel with all of these fabulous women tonight. I am at Playmakers as a member of the faculty and company associate for with Playmakers and a company member, and I'm also the associate director for Hidden Voices, and I'm their performance director. So it's great to be here. I'm like Jerry Lynn, did not study directing formally, but have been doing it for a couple of years, working with our undergraduates at school, as well as lots of our local community folks, which is kind of our focus is Hidden Voices. So,
okay, welcome. Well, Meredith.
Hello, my name is Lameredith Jones. I currently teach at Meredith College, which is my alma mater, and at NC State as well. I basically, I'm in Raleigh and I grew up here basically from age 12 on. So a lot of my theater education and career has been in the area. And I went to grad school at Sarah Lawrence, which is where I really started to dig into directing. It is a multidisciplinary program, so you get to study whatever you would like to study under the umbrella of theater. So directing was one of my many focuses.
Welcome. Mia?
Yay, excited to be here. I teach at NC State. I am the assistant director of acting and directing. And I work with academic programs at NC State for theater. I'm a director by training. I got my MFA at the University of Mississippi a little over 20 years ago, and I've been teaching for about 15 years. Before that, I was a touring actor. I did a lot of whole language learning stuff, a lot of children's theater, and a lot of original work. And I do periodically do freelance work as well.
Awesome, awesome. Susanna?
Hi, thanks for having me on the panel tonight with all these other wonderful women. It's really a great opportunity for us to be together that I don't think would have happened otherwise, so yay. I'm Susanna Huff, and I am a actor and a director, and I am also co-artistic director of Honest Pint Theater Company here in Raleigh. And like Jerry Lynn, I agree with you. I wish I had studied directing for my master's instead of acting. But I didn't know what I didn't know. Anyway, so yeah, I've been in Raleigh now for 22 years. And before that, I'm from LA, and I lived in New York and San Francisco and all points in between, and I landed here 22 years ago now. So.
Awesome. And Vivian?
I am also just thrilled to be here. And while I get to spend a lot of time with Kathy and Jerry Lynn, because I'm producing artistic director of Playmakers, it's really nice to be in this context with them and the rest of these amazing women. And Erin, I still consider myself a newbie here because it's been about 4.5 years. And from what I can tell, I'm going to be a newbie for a lot longer, but I have fallen in love with the Triangle and North Carolina and being an artist here in this amazing community.
Awesome. Ladies, thank you so much for being here. This is such a unique platform because we are going to be able to dive into this from the perspective of women in theater. And so for me, I do not have a theater background. I kind of stumbled into it, and the next thing you know, I'm assistant stage manager, and I'm stage manager, and then this thing called directing came to my lap, and I'm just like, yeah, right. I don't know. Yeah, I've been stage managing for about 10 years. I don't know if I'm ready for that, but it was part progression, and then I guess part circumstances that I did end up being able to direct. And so I'm curious to know what made you all, or how did you get into directing? Was it a natural progression? Was it always your goal that, oh, I want to direct? Or was it just circumstances that landed you there? I want to start off with Mia. How did you get into directing?
I'm the oldest child in my family and have always liked to tell other people what to do. And I think that's part of it. So kind of comfortable with the whole, no, we should do it this way. And I had this wonderful, and now that I look back on it, insane second grade teacher who decided the logical thing to do to teach second graders literature was to do a production of Romeo and Juliet. And so because I was super thrilled of this little modified version of the script, I took it home and I memorized the whole thing overnight. and came back and could recite the whole thing and was cast as the one and only ingenue I've ever played on stage. I played Juliet. And I would stab myself with a rubber knife and I would lie behind the desk on the marmoleum floor and I would watch everything that happened because I really wanted to know how it ended. And I look back at that because I got called a big faker by the second grader playing Romeo, who was a method actor even then. And I realized that I was really more interested in like the overall structure than I was in being an actor, because I'm not great at being a person. I feel like I need a lot of practice with that. And so inhabiting one perspective is so much less interesting to me than going, well, how is this character influenced by this character? And now they're both changed. And that gift can happen as an actor, but you're so much more likely to catch it as a director because it's your job to find that structure. So that's really where I fell in love with theater, on that second grade floor with the dust bunnies.
Wow. Oh gosh, Kathy, how did you get into directing?
Oh my gosh, that is such a great story. I hope you guys hear me. I put on my headset.
Yes, thank you.
What a great story, Mia. My goodness, I've got this image of you on the floor. That's just so wonderful. I trained as an actress, and my interest in directing really came out because of my interest in social justice work and theater work. I began to work in New York with students in middle schools and high schools using the arts in their curriculum. And then when I moved down here and connected with Lyndon Harris, who runs Hidden Voices, the sort of natural outgrowth of our kind of work together as I began to direct. But really, I'm primarily an actress, and I personally found directing terrifying. I much prefer to just focus in my little lane and just focus on my character and take care of one thing. And directing is such a larger picture and a bigger story that I'm in awe of everybody who does it, and it was a little kind of surprising and frightening in the beginning. But my own personal start came out of my interest in social.
Awesome, awesome. Deb, how did it start for you?
So I originally auditioned to get into UNC Greensboro as a voice major, and I was accepted into the school. And but then at that time, the music school was right beside the theater. So, and I made friends with all those people because I would be up in my music room rehearsing for my juries. And we all got really close, and I decided my second year that I was going to switch my major, and I had to audition for that program as well to get a BFA in acting directing at that time at UNCG. I think it's still the same way. You have to audition to get into it. And my primary objective, I think, although I told Lowry Marshall at the time, who was now at Brown University, I said, I want to be a director. I really think I want to be a director. But most of the time I was focused on being on stage and acting. And although I have to say, UNC Greensboro did so many beautiful things for their students, in that they made us learn how to design lights and set and costumes. And that was all a part of a BFA in acting and directing. It wasn't until I got to grad school and I fell in love with the idea of telling stories, of speaking to the world, you know. And I guess maybe I don't think of myself in the traditional sense of a director. I love being in the storytelling with the actors, and that's probably in large part due to the fact that I was an actor, you know, and so I like to feel what the actors feel, and I like to be with them. So, and anyway, I get to Northwestern, and I'm in Devised Theater and Augusta Boal and doing all this Bogart viewpoint stuff, and I was like, I want to do this for the rest of my life. I want to tell stories this way. So.
Wow, wow. Jerry Lynn.
Yeah, hey, so yeah, I started really, like I said, on my feet when I took the job as the artistic director of Art Center Stage. I didn't know how to pick a season. I didn't know how to, look for rights for plays. I literally had to learn everything on my feet. And it was so terrifying and so much fun. I loved it. So I both produced our own shows that we did in-house and then presented a bunch of different outside groups. And I love the process and the collaborative nature of theater. And I love, as the director, you are much more involved in that collaborative process than I was as an actor. As an actor, you come in, you do your part, but as a director, you get to be part of it all. And I love that. I love surround myself with really good people that I really trust and that I love to work with. And I get really kind of excited. And as you can tell, this is kind of how I am as a director. I'm really supportive of other people and want to be their cheerleader and their support system to do the best work that they can do, whatever they are there to do. And I'm both the leader, but I'm also like their champion and their support system, kind of like a parent almost, like you got to guide the ship, but then, you got to let the ship kind of find its way too at the same time. I don't know. I just
Nice
want to
analogy.
tangent.
No, nice analogy. Erin?
I mean, Jerry Lynn, I shadow a lot of the stuff you say about just having a great team and supportive. I kind of fell into directing because a lot of people said I should give it a go because I'm an overly ambitious person and I like to have 8,000 hats. I've done multiple national tours and I started getting into producing in New York and producing my own works just because as an actor, which is my primary background, a lot of times, you guys in New York City, it's like I'm a dime a dozen and I got tired of the game. So I started creating my own stuff. And that's how I fell in love. And I was actually very mentored by some great producers in New York City. And it just kind of fell in my lap where it was an opportunity where a good friend of mine was choreographing a regional production of Grease. And he was supposed to direct it too, and he had a conflict. And I'd done 18 shows for this man. And he was like, Erin, you've done Grease 7 times, including the national tour. You can do this. And I was like, I mean, I was, 30, I'm 38 years old. This was 3 years ago, which it's hard to, I cast my own show out in New York. I call them, it's really rewarding.
Awesome. Lamira, how did you get into directing? Was it progression? Was it a goal?
Just like Mia, I'm an eldest child. So, I mean, it really was. When she said that, I went, oh yeah, that's me too. But yeah, many of the women have already said, I think many of us share a similar story, which is that we were actors first. And I just got sick of waiting. When you're an actor, you kind of sometimes have to wait to participate. And as an actor, I kind of got sick of like waiting to be cast so that I could participate. I knew that theater wanted to be my life. I wanted theater to be my life's work. And I knew that I needed to diversify my palette. So I began by extending into choreography because I'm also a dancer. I'm an actor that moves very well and can teach other people to move like they know where their body parts are. So I began as a choreographer, and then it was a somewhat smooth transition into directing. And then going to grad school really helped blow that up and expand that world. But yeah.
Awesome. Vivian?
Not dissimilar to bits and pieces of everyone else's stories. My version of that is that when I'm directing, the glass is half full. And when I'm acting, the glass was always half empty. And so it was sort of like get of that feeling. I have always done both from 6th grade. I have my 6th grade like story of starting to direct everyone in my class and tell them what to do. And then apparently I invited all my friends' parents over to my mother's house, but never told my mother, and then walked in on a performance. But that's a whole other tangent. But I think for me, I sort of want to respond. It's interesting hearing Susanna and Jerry Lynn both say they wish they'd studied directing, but I think we're incredibly lucky, those of us who came to directing through acting, to have studied acting, because I think the perspective, like I love being an actor's director. That's what, and I think the sort of being able to get inside each different character's role as well as the big picture is sort of part of what fuels me so much. I think overall for me, like what got me into directing, like the control freak part, no question, in that, but like putting together the joy of the alchemy of bringing people together to tell a story together is unparalleled, and I'm so moved by that energy that I feel from all of you about that part, because I definitely feel that. So I went to grad school as an actor, and then even though through college, where Lowry Marshall was my teacher at Brown, woo, she was talking about powerhouse one. She really influenced me, and the incredible Zelda Chandler, who really is sort of responsible for the regional theater movement, was the head of NYU when I got to go there as a graduate acting student. So I feel like I was sort of stardust of other women who led me along the way that way, and then started directing and acting most of my career, and then fell in love with education and producing as well. So
Awesome, awesome. And Susanna?
Well, yeah, my story mimics a lot of the other ladies on the panel. I have a BFA in drama with an emphasis in acting, and then went on to do post-degree work at ACT and whatnot. And anyway, I just really, I always wanted to be an actor. I mean, that was what I always dreamed about doing as a kid and did as a kid, and then into my adult life. And I loved it, but I didn't really have a lot of directing experience other than directing high school students when I was younger. And then I moved to the Triangle, and I just kept being an actor because that's what I did. But what I didn't know about myself at the time was that I really approach every show I was in kind of like, I always thought about it from a director's standpoint, but I thought that's what everybody did. I mean, I did my work as the actor, but I think in pictures, I think quite visually, I think large scale, and then I'm also very good at zeroing in on details, like fine tuning details. And I'm always, I guess, secretly directing everything I watch anyway, or anything I'm a part of anyway. And it really wasn't until David Henderson asked me to direct a show that I thought I could do it well here, because so much time had gone by between directing gigs for me that I didn't think I had the skill set anymore. I thought that's an old dream and I'll put that away. But then I went ahead and did it. I just jumped in with both feet, and I'm really glad, because I really do like directing so much more than acting now. And I keep saying, every role I act in, I go, well, if this is the last time on stage, that's okay. I went out on a high note. It's good. I'm good. And anyway, so yeah, like what Vivian said, I like being an actor's director. That if people thought of me like that, I'd be really happy, because then I know I'm doing my job.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It's interesting to hear how, in one way or another, all of your experiences that have led you to this point as a director somewhat intertwine somewhere. And that kind of leads me to this next question. How do you feel about being identified as a female director, or do you prefer to do you want to be known as a director and it doesn't matter what your gender is? Or do you feel like the time that we're in right now, that you have to be identified as a female director? And I'm going to go ahead and Lamira, if I'm going to throw that out to you first, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, my first response is I'm not known as a female director. I'm known as a Black one first. So I think that's how producing people, that can hire me to direct think of me. I think they think of me as that Black director that can also choreograph and so has movement background and training. Yeah, and I would say that, I'm relatively early in I would like to think in my career in general, but also especially in my directing career. And so those identifiers obviously influence the type of work you get. And that's for better or for worse. If there's a play about, violence against Black people or police brutality, like I might get a call. And so I don't really care how I'm identified. I think the only time it bothers me is when people think that it means that I can only direct certain stories. Otherwise, I do identify as female. I do identify as African American. But I think sometimes people who are trying to do good, who are trying to reach out, kind of sort of miss the forest for the trees, and thinking that then these are only the types of stories that you're interested in telling, which is incorrect. The sun's gone down, so I'm going to go find the light.
Okay, thank you. Erin, what are your thoughts on being identified as a director or a female director, what have you?
That's an interesting question. Because again, like I'm going into directing my third production, but I guess I wear the female, the female proud because, I was, when I was venturing off into my first gig, when I reached out to people in advice and was like, can I even do this? I actually reached out to quite a few female directors. And my friend Antoinette was like, please, for the love of God, there needs to be more of us. And she kind of gave me that. And I was like, all right, you're right. I can do this. And I think for me, which is, because I have a musical theater background. And it's just so funny too, just like it's still, even musical theater is such a male dominated industry. I would always then at least a little bit around men. I'd be like, I am a director because I needed people, I hate saying it, a little bit of like the Elle Wood syndrome where they were like, okay, sure, you're cute, and so a couple, instances in having to deal with other, management, like the head technicians and like sound and stuff being like, having people be able to take me serious. So I think I'm proud to say I'm a female director, but I guess in certain circumstances, depending on the parties I'm around, I do like to be called just a director so that we're all in the same playing field, if that makes any sense, I guess.
It does. Jerry Lynn, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I never identify myself as a female director. I just am a director, just like I'm a person. I'm Jerry Lynn. I'm a director. I'm an actor. I just never really even thought of it. I've just never put myself in that category. I think we have a question coming up that will touch on this maybe. I just think I could do it all. I don't know if that's true. I just like to think I could do it all. Like, I don't need to do.
There's nothing wrong with that.
A play about ladies. I can do Glengarry Glen Ross. That would be awesome. And not just like the lady version of Glengarry Glen Ross. Like, I like to hear a lot of F words and bombs and guys getting rough. I can handle that. I don't know. I'm just kidding around. I just never thought of it. I just really never thought of that. Like, I'm a female director.
Okay. But you did. Susanna, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't really identify as a female director. I don't, like Jerry Lynn, I don't really think about that. I'm just a director and a director for hire. And if people want to hire me because I'm a female, that's fine. That's okay. I bring a perspective to the material and, that's good. But I would like to think that I qualify to direct things based on my merit and on my work, and not because of my gender. But
No, that's fair enough. Definitely fair. Vivian, what is your thoughts on that?
I would agree completely. I think of myself as a director, but I also, as a director, the the woman that I am has everything to do with how I direct, but I don't identify as a female director. And I think just as a producer, what's interesting is when I got the job at Playmakers, I was the 16th female artistic director of a LORT theater uh, in America. Now I haven't actually found out, but it's more than doubled in the 4.5 years since then, which is
Nice.
awesome, right? Like more than, I think it's probably tripled or tripled on that. And that, that's still not a lot, as we were saying. So as a producer, I feel very committed to being a female producer who gets to amplify other women in the arts.
Very nice, very nice. Thank you. Deb, what is your thoughts on the idea of being identified as a female director versus a director, or your personal preference?
I too think that it's important just to be acknowledged as a director with, that places integrity on the art, and that people would recognize my work and the kind of stories that I've had a desire to tell or have been a part of telling, and how that it shouldn't matter whether I'm male or female. And I also bring every aspect of what I am as a woman to that. Like Lamara and like Mia, I was the oldest of 7 kids. I grew up on a farm, and I did a lot of directing with all these children. And so, and all of those experiences as a woman, giving birth to children, working in the prison, doing the thing, all those come with me. I bring those experiences with me to every project that I work on. And it should be value. It should have a value that goes beyond a gender label. That when you work with this individual, this is what I'm bringing to the table. And I'm proud of the fact that I'm a female director.
Nice, nice. Kathy, what are your thoughts on being, director or female director?
I mean, I just love this. I mean, it's so interesting because, of course, I, like every other woman on this panel, I bring every single part of who I am. I have been the young woman. I've been the sort of younger woman. I am now the middle-aged woman. I am the mom. I am the, all these things. To me, I don't really, do I identify myself as female director? No, I don't sit around and go, Kathy, you are a female. What I will say is that people who want to put me in a box, I like that they reveal themselves. So if you identify me as a female director, as the Black director, as the this director or that director, then I just know who I'm dealing with. And that's okay, because, women deal with that all the time. So I don't do it. And if I have to call you out because you do it, then I will. But that's all I got to say.
Yes, I love it. I love it. I love it. Yeah, we need some snaps on here because that is so on point. So Mia, rounding out this question, what is your perspective on being identified as a female director or director?
I think most of the time when I hear that label, it is a reductive label, and the assumption is that directors are male. I did get my back up a little bit when I saw the women directing panel, and then there was the directors on directing, and I'm like, wait. Because if you look at the percentages across the United States, the greater the resources that come into play, the fewer women are given opportunity to take leadership roles, because culturally we're just much more comfortable with men in position of authority than we are with people who are perceived as women in positions of authority. And I know that I sometimes struggle with actors who have a harder time taking direction from me because I'm female. But I also know that I also have a relationship with many actors that are about creating a different kind of space, that it isn't an authoritarian rehearsal process. The project is about a deeper relationship and about an embodied learning experience with each other. How are we in relationship with the audience, and how are we communicating in a way that really privileges so many of the qualities that we identify culturally as being feminine, soft, receptive, emotional, fluid. All of those things are really interesting to me. So I'm excited about the work that's associated with women directors, but I'm also very much aware of the label being used as a dismissive moniker in a lot of situations. So thank you for the
Wow,
question. It was
wow.
fantastic.
No, those are phenomenal responses. I'm just like really trying to take all of that in, and those different perspectives, and they are all just great and really worth considering. I was watching a video on Playbill yesterday, I believe it was, and it was a panel of women talking about their experiences on Broadway, trying to get, I think they were majority playwrights, and trying to get their work produced and et cetera. And I think all of you all have touched a little bit on this, a little bit about women of color on and off Broadway, their opportunities, their salaries compared to their male counterparts. What, if anything, do you think can be done to kind of help level that playing field? And Kathy, I'm going to throw that to you.
That's a great question. It's so interesting in this time of pause, when Mother Nature has put her foot down and said, world, you need to stop and sit down, and has sent everybody to their room. We have an option right now to either try to go back to the way things were and rebuild the entire system and hold it back up, or we have the option to change. So what can we do to level the playing field? Just change it. I mean, I'm a little, over the steps and the focus groups and the should we or shouldn't we. Equal pay for equal work. That's it. There's really nothing else to do. So that's all I got to say.
Thank you. Yes, and very simply put, Jerry Lynn, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I agree with Kathy. Change is hard. It's hard for people. But it's exciting. I think opportunity. It's exciting. Challenging. Challenges are, I think, invigorating. I think that the most important thing is for when we have positions where we, as people and people who are women, have an opportunity to provide work for other people who happen to be women, and they're talented and you like working with them. I think you give them a job when you have that ability to provide opportunities for others. You pay it not only forward, but you pay it sideways and backways. You give it up to other women. I'm not saying you exclude guys, but I'm just saying be mindful.
Right, fair. Deb, what's your thoughts on that?
I'm kind of like with Kathy. I think we let's change it. And the way we can change it is with our voices. And I also am saying that this is incorrect. There's so many ways that we could use our voices right now to say, hey, everybody, let's get a grip. This is wrong. This, in our lives, we see it all the time. So why not just take the challenge to open our mouths and say, I is theater companies need to think about the work they're doing and why they're doing it, who they're hiring. I mean, why would an all-white run theater company do a show that should be done by a Black company? I mean, we need to think about those things because it sets an example there in the world that says, well, I can do this, you know, think about where the ownership should lie. And I feel really strongly about this because we don't say it out loud, and we don't talk about it, and we don't say, hey, perhaps maybe you shouldn't be doing this show, perhaps this person should be directing it, perhaps this female should do this show, perhaps this Black company should be doing this show. And if it is an all-white run theater company and they're making money off of shows that are incorporating people of color in their cast, then they damn well should be paying those actors, female and male alike, especially when they're referring to some of these shows as cash cows, or I think I'm gonna make a lot of money off of this, and it's gonna go into there's just so much about this that if we would just raise our voice and say, we need to shift this paradigm. Perhaps it will come, you know, perhaps when we see women leading our country, and people are like, oh, wow, women can lead countries. Yes, we can. We can lead countries, we can lead theater companies, we can direct, you know, there's, so I'm sorry, I have to come down off my box. But it makes me crazy because, you know, I can remember, you know, I founded Justice Theater Project, and I remember Thomas I. McDonald coming to me and saying, Deb, why don't we do more shows that incorporate more females or more Black actors, more Black artists? But you know, there's a certain point where you draw the line and say, Majoa should be directing pieces, or Majoa. So I have and that sets an example for everyone to start thinking outside this box that, you know, should not be placed in. We need to send them all to their rooms, Kathy, and say, let's rethink this.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate that it has to be a think outside of the box in order for it to be a level playing field. That's unfortunate. Erin, what are your thoughts on trying to make all of this a level playing field based on gender, race, etc.?
I mean, you guys, it's picking all these amazing things everyone's already saying. Like Kathy, kind of out of the gate, kind of yeah, this pandemic has given us all a lot to think about. And right now, no one has jobs, no one has careers. Like I have friends who are in 14-year Broadway runs who don't know if they have something to come back to. Now is the perfect time to also like make it an even playing field, make it so that everyone has the same pay scale. To like, let's get some of these celebrities off their high horses. They don't need to be making 30 grand a week to be in a Broadway show. And I think that can start from the top of the chain in New York City and come back down to the regional circuit, so that even people being brought in on these equity contracts, there's money into the theater, because everyone's going to be looking for work. And if you're in it for the craft, you're gonna want the job. Like, let's be real, you know, because if you chose it for the money, you chose poorly. But I mean, I think there's just frustration in so many different aspects of the industry. I mean, I can really only say it from an artist point of view right now, just because I am so new to the directorial side of things. And I know that when I do look at theater companies and postings, and when I think about, you know, when I see a theater company doing something so, again, like either, you know, staying so in the box or not so extremely outside of the box, I mean, I have to, as an artist, go, okay, is this a piece that I think is sort of being appropriately done in the light that it should be done? Am I potentially taking work from somebody else who it should be their work? You know, I think right now where we're at, yeah, it's like, yeah, Kathy said, Mother Nature has put a hard stop on so many things, so many industries, but especially the arts, because it's going to be a slow climb back. So you guys, yeah, that's kind of,
Yeah, I know it is. Lamirif.
hire women, pay them what they're worth. Hire more women, pay them what they're worth.
That's just it. That's just it. Just that simple, right?
I mean, I went to a women's college, so I was very spoiled because I was surrounded by women artists. So it's not like we can't do it. Just hire us and pay us what we're worth, please, and thank you.
There you go. I love it. I love it. Mia, what is your thoughts?
Well, I'm really acutely aware of how much shame there is around conversations around money. So I feel like part of it is about, we have to say, this is the amount of money that's being offered, and talk openly, get out of that kind of Calvinist mindset of never talk about religion or money or whatever, because it leads to the pushing down of open exchange about going, well, what is the given value for the task that I'm accomplishing? And we're not having those kinds of open discussions about what is the value of any given field. And the more people are not talking about what their pay rate is, and people being told openly, do not talk about your salary with other people, the harder it is to even get a sense of where you are in the scale. And because of the shame around conversations around money, there's that weird thing where you start to feel really grateful for the drips and drabs that people give you because they're giving you opportunity. And artists really want to get in there and do the work. So kind of fearless conversation around money, and echoing Lemaire with the, when you have a choice, and you can support.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Susanna?
The only thing I want to add, because I agree with everything else that's already been said, is just real fast if you want to get real radical about it, remember that, theater companies don't exist without their donors. And if you feel very strongly about pay equity for everybody involved, give your philanthropic dollars to theater companies that provide those opportunities for women and people of color. And, or, if you're really rich and you're giving like a huge amount of money, you can restrict it. You can put restrictions on that gift that say this will be to pay or to, foster a female artist or a person of color within your company, or, whatever. You can dictate your gift in whatever way you want, if it's big bucks or not. But, you can be mindful with your philanthropy dollars about who you give to. And if you believe strongly in pay equity and gender equity and, all of that, then your money talks. Your money's important.
Yeah, definitely it is. I kind of want to shift the gears a little bit. We have definitely, I feel like, touched on so much as far as theater and experiences as women and what we can do to level the playing field. So I kind of want to shift off to something completely different, and I'm really looking forward to the responses to this. But as directors, what has been your worst experience? And sometimes I have a feeling it's going to be fun. Like, I see in your reactions now, your worst experiences are probably going to be like hilarious. And so I just kind of want to shift off into just those overall experiences as directors who just so happen to be female or, and or Black, whatever. But Susanna, I want to start with you. What has been one of your worst experiences as the director?
Well, I don't really want to frame it as worst experiences, because really, like, everything is an opportunity for learning and growth, right? So
right. Let's
not frame it negatively, but I've had my share. I mean, I could we could go on and on. I'd say one of the most frightening experiences was a technical artist that we hired to build our set disappeared during Tech Week. And I was a director of that show, and as well as, no, I was not producing that. I was just the director, but yeah, we ended up, David and I ended up building our own set during the day, rehearsing at night. The paint wasn't even dry at, 3 p.m. opening day, and we rushed home to take showers and then come back and open the show. It happens.
Yes, yes, yes.
It's an
Yes, I
opportunity.
can only imagine that.
You know, you have to, what it teaches you is that you can't, you know, the best laid plans will go awry. The people you put 100% of your trust in might disappoint you, and you have to be ready for that. The kind of theater we produce is entirely different than like NC State or Playmakers or, you know, other larger theater companies. So there's nobody to call. It's us. We're it.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So that definitely sounds like a more of a challenge. But it sounds like you all pulled it together and made it happen. But I'm sure that had to be like nerve-wracking.
Well, that's the nature of theater. You make it happen no matter what.
Yes, and that is one of those things that as a stage manager, I'm constantly like, well, it's live theater. What are you going to do? You know. So Mia, what about you? What is one of your most, whether it's worse or funny or stressful experiences you've had as a director?
Oh, all of the above. So it's a completely different state, not in the state of North Carolina. Early in my career, I was working on a devised piece of theater. And I was hired in as a director to work with a company of actors who had already been hired. And so we didn't have the kind of community that that really is essential, I think, for collaboratively created work. And so I came in and we had a really short turnaround to what was kind of a sneak peek of what you're supposed to see with the show. And so we built this whole first number that was about 15 minutes long. And it was beautiful and poignant and abstract and embodied, and it happened and got really positive responses. And then the actors rebelled and said, we want to do a real play. And your job as the director is to do the kind of work that we want to do. And they basically co-opted the process, and I couldn't wrestle them back in because I didn't have the tools that early in my career to say, hey, we've all got to be working together. And I didn't have the fuck you money to walk away from the job. And so I had to stay at that point and see it through. And so we ended up writing this really mediocre play. I was mostly unembarrassed, but when I was talking with a friend about it later, about how it went, she was like, well, that sounds like it was a real lack of leadership. And I was like, well, yeah. So that's one of those moments that I'm like, all right, I want to be really, really clear with what my intentions are and at what point I am willing to, no matter what the cost is, to walk away from a project that I'm not able to invest in. And so it was a hugely painful learning experience at that point in time. But all of those things that really kind of connect into the idea of, you know, women's work in the theater, that's something that's abstract and nonlinear and embodied and associative, all of those wonderful things that I was really excited about doing. The group of actors, there were only 5 of them, labeled as not real theater because they were used to linear plot directed pieces of theater. And so they would rather do a mediocre piece that they understood. So live and learn.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing, learning experiences. And I think even though it may be a challenge and a stressful, it's always learning. And I think it helps us preparing going into the next situation. So I completely get it. Erin, what has been one of your either worst, challenging, or stressful experiences as a director?
So being a fresh lamb, putting myself out to slaughter, and getting hired, basically not knowing what I'm doing. Basically, the worst experience I had was the fact that I was hired to direct a show for a producer who was a disaster and basically set me up for failure everything down to they didn't hire musicians, so everything, they didn't have tracks for me the first day of rehearsal. I didn't have a musical director. I hired my own costumer. I brought in my own choreographer. I tapped into all the friend sources I possibly could because I was so determined to like, and it's just like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, it was the most stressful experience of my existence because I was like, this shouldn't be the first time, like, this shouldn't be how it goes, right? Like, people give you the tools to direct a show in their house, right? Like, and I was basically just like chucked a script and was like, have fun, make us, a lot of money. And the process I had to go through with the producing team and the artistic director and the owners just to have $30 to buy props was just excruciating. And I was like trying to give them, I was like, give me anything, give me a butt. But the fact I didn't have tracks for my choreographer to have my cast rehearse, I just felt like it was one hurdle over another hurdle over another hurdle where that I hands down, I mean, I persevered, and that's why and the show was one of the top selling shows that theater's ever seen. And I just was like, but they made the producing team, the owners made my life a living hell. And that was just, for me, I felt like a beast. I was like, I'll do a main stage production in my backyard right now, like after that. But I think that the worst experience, hands down, not being given the normal, adequate tools to put up a show in your home. That is rough.
Yeah. I wish you could. I don't know if you've seen people's faces. The more you talked about what you didn't have, and everybody's like, "What? No way."
I wasn't even asking for a lot. I was like, music. I mean, it's a musical.
Oh my gosh, I cannot imagine that one. Lamira, what about you?
My career is young, so I have not had many of these, but I did have something similar to Susanna where we lost a designer. Well, they left, I don't know, 3 days before tech. And it was a projections designer. So there was it basically meant this show that you thought was going to have projections is not going to have projections. And so, but necessity is the mother of invention. And so it became about, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, did we really need the projection to begin with? Nah. So yeah, we just figured out how to tell the story without them. And unfortunately a lot of that fell on the scenic designer doing more detailing on her set than originally anticipated because there weren't going to be projection on it, whenever you have less, when you're forced to work with less, that's where usually the best ideas sprout. So.
Yeah, I think that when you are put in those positions, it just amplifies your creativity and what you are able to do to make a way out of whatever happens. And it's always such a rewarding feeling in the end that got through this one. So when something else happens on another show, oh, that's nothing. This happened in this show and I handled this, so I'm prepared for this. So Deb, what's been one of your experiences that you can think of?
So probably one of the most beautiful and most difficult situations that I've ever been a part of is when I was directing Porgy and Bess. And one of my mentors, Baba Chuck Davis, was really sick at the same time. So all these things were happening at once. He got released. He was towards the latter part of his life. I had to let the music director go the Sunday before we opened on a Friday, because the music director, we had been using tracks, but the music director hadn't been working to do the music. Like there was nothing that had been learned. And so it was really bad. But one of the most beautiful things that happened out of that is people like Philip Bernard Smith and Connie McCoy Leach and Aya Wallace, all of us kind of said to ourselves, we have created this space where we believe anything can freaking happen. We're not going to lose that faith. And in the midst of that, Ronzelle Bell, if you haven't worked with him, he's an incredible musician. He somehow through the grapevine, I connected with him. I had not met him up to that point, but he was introduced to me by Maria Barber, who was another one that said, we're all going to step in, we're going to make this happen. Ronzelle Bell came in, brought musicians with him. They learned the Gershwin music in 4 days. And if you've looked at Gershwin, it's freaking impossible. And we did it. We stayed there. And Ronzelle was driving 3 hours back and forth to Virginia. And it was one of the most, at the end, it was one of the most beautiful things to watch. It was that group of people, though, that said, Shonda Branch, Maria Barber, India Williams, all these people who we had created this family space that was nothing going to keep us from staying true to that. We were going to be fierce and we were going to get through it. And then Ronzelle's like, okay, I'm going to do it with you. And those musicians walked in there and learned the music. But the night that I realized the music director had not been working with musicians, didn't really have orchestra there, I was like, oh my God, what the heck is going to happen? And we just remained fierce and we went on through.
There you go.
And we made it happen. And it was incredible. But it didn't happen because of one person. It happened because of a group of people who believed in this space that we had created where anything could happen. Nothing was going to keep us from telling that story. So.
Yeah. Amazing. And that's one of the things that I just really appreciate and enjoy about the theater community in this area, and I can't speak for any other areas, is that when you need, people pull together. I know that there were some issues that I had to deal with when I directed Bourbon at the Border, and the cast and crew will tell you, I always thank them because I was just like, I called and you all responded. And I thought that was just like amazing. And I was so appreciative of them for that, for their willingness to just kind of step up. It was just like, oh, you need, and I'm right here. And so I think, Deb, what you're talking about really does speak volumes to the community that we are a part of. Jerry Lynn, what has been your experience?
Oh, I've lost actors the day before final tech. I've had designers fail at a job and have to take over building the set or whatever. You always rise to the challenge. What I learned from those experiences was that I wasn't listening to my gut. Because a lot of times when somebody would let me down or they would fail at their job, I would have a little misgiving. I would think there's something a little off. There might be something I need to kind of, and then I'd just brush that aside and I wouldn't address it, and then it would become a problem. So that taught me that I needed to really listen to my gut when I had a little feeling or a little inkling that something was a little off. Because often that little inkling would lead to something that would become a bigger problem. So, you live and learn, and you pull yourself up and you get those people to help you, like Deb talked about, and they're always there. So I learned that, at least if you have a feeling, at least address the feeling and not brush it aside.
That's very, very good advice, because sometimes it's in the back of our heads, but we just kind of, Susanna, you had a comment?
Well, I was just going to say, you have those feelings, right? Those inklings, your gut is talking to you, but oftentimes you're not in the position to act on them. You're just the hired director. You're like, and you don't necessarily have control over who gets hired and fired and who stays on board and who doesn't. That's when it gets difficult, right? You get stuck. You're in a place where you don't have agency over the production. And that's challenging. That's the challenge. But yes, you know, if Jerry Lynn's absolutely right. If you get those inklings and you don't listen to them, you don't heed them, and you continue to work with these people who, for whatever reason, can't execute the job correctly, boy, it catches up to you. It catches up to you. That's all I want.
Definitely. Thanks. So Kathy, what has been one of your, whether challenging, stressful, experiences?
Well, one of my most stressful experiences, which actually has to do with Jerry Lynn, is in the work that Hidden Voices does. We work with community members who have come from challenging situations. And we were doing a show at the Arts Center with a young woman who had just come out of prison. And the idea was for it to be a one-woman show. And we've been working on this for a long time, months and months and months. And I would say, Jerry Lynn, you might disagree with me. In my mind, it was like 3 days before the show, but it might have been as much as maybe a week before the show. She realized she just couldn't do it. And so we had to pull that. And Jerry Lynn and Hope Hines Love stepped in and did the work for us. And the work that we do is because it's such a personal story and because of all the other sort of issues around the work that we do, they did an incredible, beautiful, sensitive, such a nuanced and lovely performance in really a really short amount of time. I don't even know how they learned all those lines. I don't know how we did it. Well, they did it. But it goes back to sort of the graciousness of the community and the understanding of the work, the artistry that both these women brought to our work. I don't know that I've ever been that anxious, except for when my children first got their driver's license and took the car keys and were out on their own for the very first time. That was the pit in the bottom of my stomach for those 5 days before we were able to do the show. But it really is about community and understanding and just the pulling together of people to do work that is important, people who can believe in what you believe in. So thanks again, Jerry Lynn. Really a great save, girl. Thank you so much.
and Vivian, welcome back. I know you had to step away. We were addressing the question as to what was one of the most challenging or worst experiences you've had as a director. Can you think of anything?
They're more like just awful moments than any full productions that I think of. Those were the worst or the best, but those moments where you feel where you doubt yourself and the belief of the group that you're working with and pushing forward those stories. And it can come, as everyone has sort of said, from every direction. It can be an actor who has a different idea or doesn't want to hear what you're offering. It can be a designer who insisted on building something on a rake that you knew was going to be wrong, and then it's there and it's really wrong, and people are hurting themselves. It can be there's so many angles. It can be a playwright who assured you they were going to be doing rewrites and then they don't at all. It gets there's so many ways in which the director is working. I think of it, Jerry Lynn said maternal, and for me, there's this great Harold Clurman quote about directing is like making love to a room full of people, and you have to learn what each and everyone's different foreplay is and different things is and different and so you're like juggling all of this, and sometimes you're feeling really good about it, but when it gets off, it can be really hard. And I think the part of women directors, and the blanket statement that has so many exceptions, but the nurturers in us want to be on par and like listening and receiving and doing that. And so for me, when that goes off, those are the really, really hard moments. And the last thing I'll say, as a producer, I more than anything, I care about creating an atmosphere where a director and a team feel supported to do what they do. And it's one of the hardest parts of the job, and you don't always succeed in it. And as a producer, the worst experiences as a producer is when a director and a team are going through one experience and your company is going through another, right? And that does happen, and it's heartbreaking when that does happen. And trying to navigate to get everyone on board is the work, and that's that.
What I really liked about that question is that it gives insight for someone who's never directed to what just an inkling of what the experience can be like and what you may be up against. And you can prepare for as much as you want to, just in case, but you're never fully prepared for, whether it is a designer walking away or an actor not learning their lines or what have you. That as a director, you really do have to always be on your toes. That creative thing has to always be going, because you have to be able to respond, because the show must go on. Vivian, you wanted to make a comment?
I just wanted to add to that I think one of the really necessary things is being okay with not knowing. Just being okay with not knowing and being willing to share that with confidence. That's the trick, right? Not knowing with confidence.
Oh gosh, yeah, no, that I laugh about that, but and I can speak definitely from a stage manager perspective of all the various things that have happened in the middle of a show, and you just have to be able to respond and move forward. So you just take that deep breath and you just move forward. So as a director, when you're dealing with so many different designers, and you're dealing with producers and the artistic directors and what have you, so many components, it is definitely, it gets to the point, what can you do? Just be as prepared as you possibly can. So with that being said, with you all being directors, what is that most rewarding part, or that most rewarding moment for you? Erin, I want to start with you.
I mean, I think it's the relationships I've walked away with. I think that I got through it, but that I've had kids and people in my cast repeatedly want to audition for me again, and want to work with me again, and said it was the best experience and the best show that they've ever done, and that I helped make them a better actor and a better person. Granted, I was directing summer stock in a random state, but getting invited to go to their senior showcases, and their parents thanking me, like, what? Honestly, that's the taking away at the end of the day when the curtain goes down, that I made an impact on them, whether it be personally and professionally. And it's exciting then to see your name like on their resume. That just gives me, and that they're proud to put your name on their resume. So I think for me, that's been the most rewarding thing, is that people enjoyed working with me.
Awesome. Kathy, what about you? Most rewarding?
This is a really great question, because I've
your voice is going in and out a little bit.
I'm sorry. It's such a great. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, such a great question, because I think about it on different levels with the different groups that I've worked with. I know when I've directed undergraduate students, it's been a great.
We're losing you again. There you go.
It's been a great reward to be able to have them see their growth as actors, and just their joy of achievement. Through my work with Hidden Voices, I think my biggest joy is watching our participants tell their stories on stage, and having audience members come up and engage with them following the performance. It is so life-changing for them. When I work with our community with Hidden Voices, it's not so much about actors. We're not working with actors. We're working with, I was going to say human beings, but actors are human beings. But we're working with a population that is really, for the first time, maybe sharing their experiences and having a group of people be willing participants as far as listening. And that is so life-changing for both audience and actors. And that is a huge reward. And then there's also just the pleasure of really standing back and saying, hey, we told a really great story, you guys. I mean, look at what we did. And people were moved and touched. And we've given the audience an experience of what it's like to be human. And that's a pretty incredible thing in this crazy world we live in. So it's kind of multiple levels of enjoyment and excitement, and just really kind of being happy and blessed that I'm able to do this great thing.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. Jerry Lynn, what about you? Most rewarding?
I think just that feeling, it's like it almost goes through me. Like it's a force that I'm there to facilitate other people shining at what they do. And I'm there to help them do that. And so it's like there's this energy that I provide to others, and it's like a cyclical thing, right? And so when they succeed and are fulfilled with what they've done, that's when I feel rewarded, because I've provided that opportunity for them to experience their art, whatever they are doing, whether they're acting or they're on a production team, and they've succeeded and they feel good about something, then I feel rewarded because I've been able to provide that. It's like a cyclical thing with me.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Mia, what about you? What has been most rewarding?
I work a lot with students, but even with community theater members. One of the things that I love more than anything about directing is when I'm able to create enough of a structure that the actors and really crew members, any of the folks who are working with me, have enough support from me and a clear enough shape that they're able to do something that they couldn't have imagined themselves doing at the beginning. That sort of transcendent thing that happens. It happens a lot with actors when the magic kind of descends and a voice that was never there appears because somebody has the process to support the intention of the work that's supposed to happen. And then the context of the work, allowing audience members to experience something in a way that they wouldn't necessarily in their daily life. One of the things that I love the most, I directed a production of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde that Jeffrey Hatcher wrote. Brilliant, brilliant play. And Joshua Reeves, who's our program director, had done the sound design. And one of the audience members, she and her friend came out and they were like, what is this music? It's wonderful. I have never heard anything like it. And it was like, well, this is Marilyn Manson. And she was like, oh, she's wonderful. I was like, please don't Google her. But it was just, it was delightful to know that this woman had an experience with something that she would likely never have come across in her regular life. And enjoyed it, and that was really, really satisfying as a director.
That's such a great story. Deb, what about you? Most rewarding?
I think the most rewarding thing for me has been the relationships that I've been able to form along the way that have remained tight, and for the ones that we've lost along the way, that there's still these incredible memories that you have with these people, that happens, between the actor, the director, between all of us, this idea that, you know, we're creating a sense of family. And then once the show comes down and we're on to the next thing, we're still like family, and our memories are there and integral to the things and the ways that we'll be going into the future. Loving each other through the whole process.
Yes, definitely, definitely. Lamira, what about you? Most rewarding experience for you?
Yeah, most of my experience has been with young people. I hope that changes. I mean, but I really do adore working with young adults, specifically high school age through college, through higher education. And I think I'm kind of working from trying to be the person that I wish I had met in high school, and empowering young people, especially young women, to not wait for permission to do stuff, to not wait for someone to tell them that they're good at something, in order to think that they're capable. And so whenever I'm directing, it's about empowering young people and giving them the faith in themselves to not just to be whatever it is they want to be, but also to not wait for permission, because I feel like for the first half of my career, that's kind of what I was waiting for, was for permission or accolades, because I was an eldest child and I was, a straight A student. So I was just waiting for someone to tell me I was good at it so that I knew I could do it. So yeah, empowering young people, and also to make their own work. Like, don't wait for someone. There's a great Lin-Manuel quote where he was like, especially if you're a person of color, don't wait for someone to write your dream part. You have to write it yourself. And that's kind of, I wish that someone had just said to me earlier, you don't need to wait for permission. You don't need to wait for someone to write you a thing so that you can do the thing. Just do the thing.
Right. All right. I love it. I love it. Vivian, what about you? Most rewarding?
Yes to what everyone has said. And so I'll just add to that. When a big risk works, when you take a big risk and it works, it's insanely rewarding. And that can be anything from giving an opportunity to an actor that they've never gotten before and watching them blossom in it. That is insanely rewarding. To a visual, it's back to moments to me. It's rarely a full show. It's usually just moments where you're sitting there and you can watch it over and over again. You go, oh, yes, that moment, we got it. That moment tells the story I hoped it would tell. Those are those moments where normally, I don't know if you are like this, but sitting through opening nights is insanely difficult. And usually if I'm with someone, I'm grabbing their hand so tight. So it's mostly because you're out of control at that point, right? It's out of your control. You're letting go. But those moments where you go oh, that worked. Those are
Awesome. Susanna, what about you? Most
Yeah,
rewarding?
Same thing here. I'll piggyback on what Viv said and Lamira said, and that's for me the most gratifying part is to watch an actor take a big risk and go for it, knowing that they are fully supported and that there's no wrong choice. There's just many choices, and let's work together to find the one that works best to tell this story. And when they see the light bulb go on, it's so amazing, And I feel like when I'm producing a piece as well as directing it, I'm wearing two hats. The hats never come off, and I think that's probably the hardest part for me. Is a lot of times I don't have enough time to spend with artists that are working with me, and that's always so disappointing to me personally. They come looking to you to spend time, to get to know each other, to form this little nucleus, and God, I just hate it when I don't have the bandwidth to do that. But anyway, that's another discussion. But like what Viv said, sitting in the back row on opening night and absolutely peeing your pants, not knowing what's going to happen or how it's going to be received, and then to have it received positively by the audience is absolutely wonderful. There's no other feeling quite like it, because you go into it really not knowing what the outcome's going to be. Are people going to get it? You know, are they going to appreciate this big swing we just took? And so that's wonderful when the audience walks out smiling and, you know, saying, I can't wait to come back. You know, that's the best.
Mia, you had a comment?
I do. What Susanna was saying reminded me of my mother for years would say, I'll come see a show when you're in it. And I'm like, most of what I'm doing is directing. And I finally sat her down and said, you have to understand that I'm in everything up there. And that sense of really feeling through everything that's happening on stage, that when that light cue is happening at the right time, and the exact moment of the cue pickup happening, or the shift in the energy, all of those things, I think most of us are talking about feeling along with the show and aware, not just with the people, but with the whole experience as kind of an organism. And that sort of weird symbiotic relationship is the thing that I love most about directing. And it's also the thing that is the most excruciating thing about directing, because there isn't a way to control it, but that sense of connection and identity is really profound.
Awesome. So I want to move, for the sake of time, I want to move to one more question, and then we have a couple of viewer questions I want to ask. But I want to ask this question. I know that you all have seen postponed shows canceled, you know, seasons having to be completely reorganized due to COVID-19. And I want to ask the question, how do you think this is going to affect theater? What do you think theater is going to look like once we're fully opened back up and can go back to whatever I say our new normal is going to be? And I want to actually go to Susanna for that question first.
Well, nobody knows the answer to that question today. Of course, it's going to be different. We don't know when it's going to open again, and we don't know exactly what to expect today. And you know, there are huge theaters, there are small theaters, there's all kinds, you know, there's musicals. We know that singing is, you know, worse in terms of, you know, droplets floating in the air than regular speaking. So anyway, nobody knows the answer to that question today, and we're all sitting on pins and needles, because every day, I don't know about the rest of y'all, but I wake up every day going, okay, what do we know today that we didn't know yesterday about all of this? And so, you know, I know Equity put out their considerations that, you know, they have to think about before they can reopen. And the big question that I was thinking about was, think about put-ins and understudies, and what if somebody shows up on a performance date at the stage door and their temperature is not normal, and then, you know, they have to call in the understudy. Has that person been sequestering? What, you know, what are the guidelines going to be for that? And there's just so much to take into consideration. So I don't know how to answer that question, Natasha. I really don't. Not today. You know, it's a big.
No, that's a fair response. That's totally a fair response. And you know, I'm sure everyone has their ideas, and we're starting to see a little bit of people starting to say, oh, we're going to do this instead, or we're going to try this, or
you know, like Barrington Stage, for instance, is going to have a summer season. If you've been reading about that, they're taking chairs out of their theater. They're doing one-person shows. They're requiring people to sit 6 feet apart in the audience, wear masks. There's no intermissions, you know, where people wouldn't be congregating in the lobby, etc. But the fact is, you have to think about, are people going to want to travel to get there to go see the show? And are they willing to take the risk of being exposed potentially, and to pay a lot of money to do that. And it's just fraught with so many questions. So I don't know. I think it'll be interesting to see what happens with Barrington Stage this summer.
Mia, what are your thoughts?
We're having a lot of conversations about our first show of the year. NC State is coming back. We've been in conversation with folks in the UNC system schools, with the theater programs around the state. We're looking at how do things work with the audience? How do people like to come to the theater? I think there are people who have found the isolation really painful, and that they will come because they hunger for it so much. But I think we're looking at a real hybrid experience. One of the things that we've been talking about a lot is our first show of the year is Almost Maine by John Cariani. It's a romance. There are kissing scenes. How are we handling the intimacy on stage? And we're talking about, are we using physical barriers between actors on stage so that folks are protected? We're looking at adding projection in and possibly using film to explore intimacy in a way that still preserves social distancing. I think I'm finding as a director that I have these moments of absolute panic, that I think there's no way we can do it the way we have done it. And then I have to take a breath and go, what is the core of the experience that I'm trying to share with an audience? What is that really about? And what are the creative ways that we know what it is to connect with other human beings? One of Patrick Torres at Raleigh Little Theater talks about the theater as the space where we breathe the same air with the audience. And I love that expression. But we've got masks and other abatements that are happening to prevent that. But what is the way to communicate that desire and intention to share that with the audience? And that's the core, I think, of what is going to preserve through this. I think audiences will come back because there's nothing like live theater. I think it's going to be a long, slow progression. I think we're going to learn a lot along the way, but I am cautiously optimistic that we'll find ourselves really, really creative as we explore how to do this.
Thank you. Awesome. Kathy, what are your thoughts?
Unknown. I feel there is a great opportunity to move forward. I find myself having a little difficulty with the term "when we get back." I like to say "when we go forward, what will happen."
Nice.
There are so many, all the wonderful things about live theater that we love and I crave, and I really, it's, the heartbeat. There were also so many barriers for so many folks. It just feels like it's an opportunity to go forward. I have no insider wisdom as to how or why. I know there are lots of things that we're trying. I know, I'm sure Vivian and Jerry Lynn talk about this too as well, how Playmakers is, trying to envision. But I don't know, as a whole industry, I think it's an opportunity though to pivot. And I hope we don't work too hard at getting back to the things that had so many problems and that had become so horribly expensive and out of reach and out of balance. And I don't know, but I'm willing to wait. I'm okay. I have faith that it will come back. I don't worry about that at all. I have great faith in that. And I just don't really know quite how it's going to look.
Awesome. Great. That was actually great insight and wisdom to your words. Deb, what are your thoughts?
I hope that we take this moment that is causing all of us a lot of angst and we learn something from it. I agree with Kathy. I think going forward, as we look at how we make performance, how we do performance work, that maybe we're learning new ways of thinking about how it could look going forward, you know, whether it be streaming or what have you, you know, as you blend that with live performance. I just feel like there's a silver lining in this, because my favorite, you know, it's gonna end up being something, and I have faith in the fact that it's gonna be even more profoundly wonderful, beautiful, everything that we love about theater in the future from the things that we've learned. And even if it means making things not so complex, like I love the idea of thinking outside the box. How can we make theater, make performance that might not be as layered and difficult and have all these aspects to it when we're just trying to tell this one story? Are there other ways to tell that story that are more profound? That do, you know, we can do, there's something out of all this, and I hope we learn a whole lot from it and keep faith.
Thank you. Thank you. Jerry Lynn, your thoughts?
Yeah, one of my favorite books of recent times is Station 11, with a traveling Shakespearean company and orchestra after a pandemic has happened and all technology has been wiped out. It's a beautiful book. I love this book so much. I've read it 3 times, I think. Anyway, I love this traveling Shakespeare / orchestra that travels around. It seems like the upper Midwest. I'm not quite sure. I also love the play Mr. Burns, and Lamera here performing. That was amazing. But it's all about storytelling, and it's about, you know, there may be a moment where we really need to contract and tell our stories to our communities. And we just need to be real local about it. We need to be real small and intimate. And that's enough, that we are storytellers, story makers, and we provide that intimate experience for people. And even the small scale in a neighborhood or whatever is as important as on a big scale.
Awesome.
So I don't know what that's gonna look like.
Awesome. Erin, your thoughts?
Yeah, just a hard question, hard answer. Again, I'm so new to your area that I haven't even really been able to, you know, get super involved and get to experience all the pieces and all the different theaters yet. So a lot of times all my best friends and everyone I know are still in New York. So my perspective is literally all sitting in Midtown Manhattan. And I think though that for me personally, I've been following Barrington's story very closely. Some of my best friends are on the board. And so it's going to be really interesting to see how that plays out. I do think in an area such as the Triangle, with you guys having these amazing, you know, groups and so much, you know, support and love for each other, that I'm learning very quickly that this area will very quickly adapt and figure out a way to make the arts safe and amazing. And that's really exciting to be a completely outsider to see that, because, you know, I'm like, hope's not dead yet, you know. My heart breaks for, you know, Broadway, because I you know, the realism, it's not coming back for a long time. And I know when I'm not on stage, I'm going to the theater and I like to get dressed up and I like to make a night of it. And, you know, and that I think is going to be really tricky for a lot of patrons, because they like to celebrate craft and they like to celebrate artists and they like to make it an event. And I just hope that enough people who, you know, support the arts realize that their support is more than just them having a night out. I think that regionally and in some of the smaller circuits, that there's going to be some changes, but I feel really good about it. Like I feel really good that some of these, theaters that are more intimate have the advantage to like theaters that seat 1,000. I mean, I mentioned before, I work at DPAC and Wigs and Wardrobe on a lot of stuff, and I'm like, I want to be a fly on the wall for DPAC right now, just figuring out, hey, I mean, Hamilton's coming in January, but is it like, so I'm kind of also fascinated in the process of us adapting into this new normal, if you will. But I'm scared for Broadway. It will bounce back. I think it's really time that maybe this is again like going back to like the playing field and reality check. There's no reason a musical should be $24 million. There's no reason a costume coat should be $5,000 alone. Like let's go back to the piece and go back to what's on the paper. Go back to what you're really putting up there versus the spectacle. Go back to like about the material and not so much the I don't know. I mean, that might sound really silly. That go back to the talent. Go back to the artists themselves versus and granted, yes, this is all respect for the creators and the people who've created these illusions and the riggers and like everybody who made these amazing things happen. But there's still employment to be figured out in that process. But I don't think a musical needs to cost $24 million. And I think maybe that'll be a hard reality check for Broadway, but I think it's something that within the more, arts driven, tighter communities such as the Triangle that you guys are going to take, conquer, deliver, nail it, and set a precedent for a lot of other communities.
Awesome. Thank you. Lamara, your thoughts?
I don't really have anything to add. I was not cheering for myself, but I was cheering for Station 11 when Jerry Lynn mentioned it because, well, when we did Mr. Burns at Man Bites Dog, we read Station 11 for research and, for a cultural touchstone. And yeah, that book is just about people that survive a thing and then tell stories about the thing. And the play is the same thing. And it's about, I mean, it's basically what Deb said is like essentializing what you want, the story you want to tell and the best avenue through which to tell it. Like, I'll just be very honest. Like, I mean, it's nice to see all these faces, but I do not jam on Zoom. Like, this is the first time I've been on Zoom in almost a week because because it's not me, like having to set up everything so that, the light is right and then the light left and now I'm fucked. And it is just not like, I'm so glad that there are some theater companies that are really embracing it and are again using the form, like form follows function and going, okay, so like this is the reality of our situation. But I'm still like, I thought as I was going into old age that I was becoming an introvert and this happened and I'm definitely not. So I'm definitely still an extrovert and I miss people. I miss platonic touch and I forget which one of these women said, I think it was Mia that said, I think people are really going to be wanting to like see other people, like even if they can't touch them. And I feel that on a molecular level. And so yeah, I mean, like everyone else here, like I have hope. I just don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what it's going to look like. I know that the moment that I feel safe, and that's really what it's going to come down to for everyone on this planet that wants to go to the theater, is when do they feel safe and how do they make themselves feel safe? And can we as administrators, as practitioners and facilitators, can we facilitate that safety? Can we make them feel like there is space for their needs as individuals while also honoring ourselves as a collective? So when I feel safe enough, like, I mean, that's what employers keep asking me is like, would you feel safe in a room with 20 children? And I'm like, at this point, no. And because kids are gross and they don't wash their hands anyway. So, when will people feel safe? It's going to be on different timetables and can we facilitate that in the spaces that we have access to?
Awesome. I really love that response. Vivian, any thoughts on theater, what is it going to be like after COVID?
I alternate between deep grief for the community of artists as individuals who struggles, the very real struggles that are happening and ahead of us. I alternate between that and feeling like nature is somehow paving the way for the revolution. And what that is and how to go, and Kathy spoke about it so eloquently there, of like, I hope we don't go back entirely. I hope we pave a way forward, and at a being again an artistic director of a relatively large institution within a very large institution of UNC Chapel Hill, presents a lot of just questions about how can I want to believe that institutions can be part of the solutions, not just the problems. It's easy to say that and much harder to actually figure out what that means. And I guess, so I hope that what I see already, like some days I'm in total despair, and some days there are these moments of life of possibility for the creative form itself, for the way we treat each other, for the way, like, there's all this hopeful positivity. The word I've been using for us at Playmakers, the phrase is responsible optimism. Like, that's where I kind of want to lead from, is a sense of responsible optimism, and then a whole lot of surprise. I hope there's a whole lot of surprise as we care for each other.
Okay, thank you so much for that. I want to jump really quick to just a few questions, and if I can just get maybe 2 or 3 of you to respond very briefly to the questions, that would be ideal. This kind of goes back, I think, to our earlier question. Dylan wanted to know if there was a possibility of doing social distancing via live theater that includes live stream components, paywalls for elderly, you know, or is it just going to be just too uncomfortable? And may you reduce the ticket price for live streaming? Anyone want to kind of jump in and answer Dylan's question that I kind of paraphrased a little bit? Mia, go ahead. I see your hand.
We're having those discussions now. We're looking at actually mapping out, and you may have seen some theater spaces where chairs have been removed, that kind of things. We're having those kinds of conversations at NC State. How do we create a space that informs individuals how to respond in terms of maintaining social distance while they're watching a live performance, and then actively streaming at the same time. So I think those hybrid models are there, and I think the rights providers are working really hard to find ways to allow people to make content available, and we're in conversations with them about how to do that. I'm super looking forward to Women's Theater Festival's freak show performance coming up, and I think those kinds of productions are going to make it really interesting as we move forward. But exactly that kind of conversation is where we are at this point.
Okay, thank you. Vivian, you wanted to respond as well?
I was going to say similar things, that we are absolutely in all of those discussions about, and the sort of shared medium, in the same way that universities are looking at a hybrid teaching. We are looking at hybrid ways of producing theater as well.
Awesome. Here's a really interesting question, and it goes back to our earlier conversations. What are the mechanisms in the various artistic companies for transparency and stipends and salaries? That was a question that anybody want to touch that a little bit really quickly, about any mechanisms that can be used for transparency for stipends and salaries throughout for directors or what have you. Vivian, was that a hand raised?
It was, and I was gone for this part of the discussion, so forgive me if I'm either repeating or whatever, but you know, I have to say, even the question to me begs that there's a difference. And I think the assumption as a producer is that there's no difference. So the transparency is about how little we still pay in the arts, but hopefully it's not about the difference of what you're paying one person to another.
I like that approach. I like that approach. Okay, now I have this one final question I'm going to ask, and if you all can just really quickly answer this. And this comes from Tim Locklear, the Artistic Managing Director of Interact. And oops, wait a minute. And his question was to you all, what recent work locally have you been excited about? Whether something that was coming that got canceled or what have you, just what is something locally that you've been really excited about? And Jerry Lynn, I'm just going to shoot that at you first.
Hamilton. No, I don't know. Hamilton. I don't have.
You don't know that.
I don't know.
Okay, no, that's fair enough. Caught you off guard. That's okay. Deb, what you have for us?
I was really looking forward to the waning hours. It's a piece about folks that have Alzheimer's, but it takes place in more rural areas where their lack of money sometimes looks differently, and in a community, a Black community. Tara Hodge was going to direct it at Pure Life Theater. It was a Sips and Scripts piece, and I was just so excited to think about and experience that piece. From what I understand, the stage reading was magnificent. It was going to happen in September. That that probably isn't going to happen now. So yeah, I was really eager to hear about and participate in that one.
Awesome, awesome. Lemaire?
Yeah, I was most excited to see Pearly, which is a musical I didn't even know about as an African-American theater artist till I was an adult. And then I was like, why aren't we doing this all the time? Like, Aya Wallace was going to direct, I believe, and it was going to be at Pure Life. Yeah, that was what I was really upset that I was already directing something else, and so I couldn't audition, because I mean, I don't really audition much anymore as an actor, but I'd have been in that. So I was really looking forward to seeing that. It's so rarely produced anywhere, ever.
And
so.
yes, Deb, I know you're going to jump in there.
What I was going to say is we are trying to figure out how to still make that happen. Aya is a brilliant, she's one of those brilliant directors that puts beautiful images on stage, and the cast isn't huge for that piece. So we're looking into figuring out ways to have rehearsals remotely and learning choreography remotely. And then at social distancing, if we do it in the theater, if that happens, it's our space, so we can figure out ways of trying to figure out a way to make it happen. Still have to figure out how you take care of the actors. So it may just be all live streamed, or where you can stream it and watch it for a lesser ticket amount. And Concord Theatricals has been magnificent. So I hope if we don't do it, I know Aya still wants to be a part of that. It's a beautiful piece of theater, and it's a great piece of theater for us all to be watching right now in the midst of all the things that's happening to young Black men and women in our country. So
thank you. Anyone?
I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you. Anyone else? Erin, really quick.
I'm excited about making my directorial debut in the Triangle. I'm looking forward to, thank you, Tim, for giving me the opportunity to take on Little Women. Such a beautiful story and such a great script and a great score. And I'm definitely looking forward to getting to explore and see more pieces being done, whether it be virtually or getting to be there in person. full on mask on. But yeah, I'm super excited to get the opportunity to, stretch my wings as far as I can by giving guidelines. So yeah, thanks, Tim.
Awesome. 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 Susanna and then Kathy.
I was really looking forward to Native Gardens at Playmakers. I was really disappointed that that did not happen. Viv, I hope there's a way to bring that to audiences. It's such a great piece. And
Agree.
I waited all season for it, and then and then I'm producing smallmouth sounds, hopefully in the fall. We'll see. So looking forward to that. And also I'm very looking forward to Pearly in whatever form it happens, Deb, for sure. And, maybe you could do it virtually and then live later. I don't know. But again, it's a really important piece and needs to be seen. So.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. Kathy? You're muted.
Yeah, I know. Sorry, I couldn't find my, I was too busy thinking of all the things that we missed. I just want to say, I was looking forward, and I think it's gonna happen in maybe January, Piece of Clay. Mike Wiley and Howard Kraft's new piece with Aurelia directing. So that was mine.
Oh, awesome. Powerhouse, just right there with those three names.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. And Vivian.
Oh, I was going to cheat only because it's close to home and say it was supposed to happen in the spring, and we are going to make it happen in one shape or form or another coming up, probably definitely on film in some way, which is the world premiere of Jacqueline Lawton's play Edges of Time, starring Kathy Hunter-Williams. So that I'm so glad that because it's a one-person show, we are able to pivot and use this experience, and Jacqueline has kindly said she's up for that experiment as well. So I look forward to that a lot.
Awesome. Ladies, before I turn it back, was there someone else?
What about birthday candles? What's the word?
Well,
because Vivian was supposed to make her Broadway debut as a director. You all know that, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I was a week and a half into rehearsal, and now I just got a text from Deborah Messing sending me the link to the article in Today's Time saying people are giving up on Broadway for 2020. So I think I am optimistic for 2021. So let's hope. The thing I will say, Noah Heidel's beautiful play, whenever Broadway reopens, it's like the perfect play to reopen with, and small, tender, and all about what's important in the moment. So I hope we get to do it. We'll see.
Awesome. Ladies, before I turn it back over to Lauren, I just want to personally thank you so much for taking the time to have this discussion. This has been a wealth of information and wisdom and camaraderie and support, and I just really appreciate it. I personally have taken away so much from this discussion, and I hope that future discussions will be able to happen. I hope that everyone watching would be able to take something away, whether it's from a female perspective, from a director perspective, from a theater perspective, life, just because you all have put forth so much wonderful information. So I really greatly appreciate you taking the time to do this. And the support, and of course always I send love to RDU on Stage and to Lauren. What she has done for the theater community in this time has been phenomenal. She has she just steady goes, and I'm always, Lauren, when are you gonna rest, and she's always, oh yeah, next week, and then next, that keeps going on. But thank you all so much for your support and for just being out there and being willing to do this and representing in so many different forms. Lauren, are you back with us? Can I turn it back over to you?
I am here. So thank you for the shout out. I am in awe of this group, and I feel like both of these sessions with the men earlier and you guys tonight has been a master class in directing. Absolutely 100%. And I'm so appreciative to all of you for being here with us tonight. Vivian, I know you're joining us from New York. I hope you come home soon. We want to see you back in Chapel Hill. And I'm just, thank you all for this, your time and your knowledge and your camaraderie tonight. It's very wonderful. Tomorrow night, I will be with Ken Smith, who is a WRAL anchor and a reporter. And although it seems like I'd be talking to him about the news, because this has been a really interesting and disturbing news cycle of late, he is also a huge theater fan, and I cannot tell you how many times I have sat by a stage door next to him because he's getting his playbill signed as I'm getting my playbill signed. So we are going to talk about theater. We are going to talk about the news. Tomorrow at 2 p.m., Mike McGee is taking us back to the West End because we're doing a lot from the West End as well, and he will be with I'm sure I'm pronouncing this name wrong. Aaron Blair Mangut, who is right now in Anne Juliet in the West End when things open again. So that conversation will happen at 2 p.m. on Instagram. Ken's conversation with me will happen at 8 here on Facebook. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Natasha, for joining me. Thank you to all of these powerhouse directors.
Yes.
I'm so appreciative, and I will see you all at the theater whenever that is. So I will be there. Thank you all. Thanks everybody for watching. I'm going to echo what Tamara Kassane said. She posted a comment on Facebook. We're grateful for all the work that you all do for this community. And there are plenty more stories to tell. So we'll keep telling them. Thank you all. And I will see you soon. Stay safe and healthy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.